We're here at Ballantoy Church, and just in this building is a beautiful stained glass window of St. Patrick. And like countless missionaries around the world, he brought Christianity by teaching it and by singing it. Indeed, St. Patrick's breastplate is one of the best known and oldest songs in the history of Christianity.
And St. Patrick knew that when we sing the truths of the gospel, we remember them, we live them, we share them. And of course, our singing, when we sing together, is always a witness, is always a testimony, bearing testimony to what it is that we believe. Is it a good witness? That's the question. When we gather together, are we singing as people that really believe what it is that we are singing? Are we actually singing an authentic picture of God and the gospel?
Indeed, the verse which says, when two or three are gathered, Jewish people would immediately have known was a legal term for bearing testimony to their faith. So when we sing, we're always bearing testimony. If you go out this door and begin to look across the sea on a good day, you will see Scotland. And one of our heroes growing up here in Northern Ireland was Eric Liddell. Eric Liddell's story was famously told by Chariots of Fire, where in the 1924 Paris Olympics, he changed at the last minutes to doing the 400 meters and won gold. What's even more spectacular about Liddell's life is what happened after that. Less than 1 year after those games, Liddell decided to go back to China. He was accused of treason by his country. He was called a fool in the national media. And as he left to go to China from Waverley Station in Edinburgh, was asked to make a comment to streets filled with people to say goodbye and media there to take photographs. He was asked to make a comment, and he started to sing the hymn, Jesus shall reign where'er the sun does his successive journeys run. Christians for countless years have understood the importance of singing as part of their witness.
We've had the great privilege of meeting so many great Bible teachers and missionaries over the years, and have been very inspired because there's a common thread in that so much of their calling to ministry and their sustaining in ministry and the way in which they express the Christian faith was cultivated through the hymns that they sing, and particularly the hymns they sang as little children with their parents. And how we look at the story of Amy Carmichael, Eric Liddell, and in America, all the great pastors and teachers that we have been privileged to work with, how many of their testimonies are around the songs they learnt as children, how they fueled their Christian life.
Yes, and Cliff Barrow said there is something irresistible to the outsider when he sees God's people singing. It is incomparable to anything you might see in a concert hall, you might see in a street, or you might see on television. It's a unique experience which draws people in to our faith.
And for those who are on the outside looking in, who don't yet believe, imagine what it must be like to walk into church and see people gathered and called to sing, and yet they're not singing. Or their hands are in their pockets, or looking at their feet, or they're just sort of looking on at what's happening in front of them. Might they not think that the people gathered don't take seriously what it is that they're singing, aren't really engaging in the message of Christianity, and what damage that might do to our witness to the watching world? The other side of that is, what must it do when somebody walks in and sees a congregation of different ages, different generations, different backgrounds, circumstances, standing together, sharing the same breath, singing the same melody, joined in the same lyric, to proclaim the same thing at the same time, boldly, with gusto? Because our singing should come with a boldness, should come with a sense of conviction, should be filled with courage, and should warm people's hearts to the gospel.
That's right. So I used to get told as a child, sing up, you might be a witness. That's only half the truth. Every time we sing, we are being a witness. It might be to the children. It might be to someone who is yet to believe. It might be to strangers visiting the church, or it might be to somebody who's been a churchgoer all their life but never found Christ, or perhaps is on the verge of ending it all. They're in such despair.
And so the songs that we choose are critical. They must be full of the gospel. They must give a clear presentation. You know, it's interesting. It's not just little ideas or nice language that we think might warm people to the gospel truth, but actually explaining what it is, telling the stories, leading people through a journey so they might have a cohesive, beautiful, great view of the God of the Bible and can join in singing it. And of course, as we know, when we sing something, we more readily remember it. And so the opportunity we have to fill people's minds and hearts with the good news of the gospel, that they might bring it out of church with them and take it into their lives.
That's right. When we first wrote In Christ Alone, actually, it was interesting because we had a criticism from friends to say that it wasn't helpful to non-Christians in church because there was theological words. And I was still hoping to write theatre productions that reached the outside world with Christianity and the Christian gospel. And yet more people have heard the gospel by that song being sung at weddings and funerals and commissioning services and recordings throughout the years. So let's make sure that our songs we choose are full of the gospel, but not just that. Let's remember that what we sing fires us to mission.
Every year we do a tour called Irish Christmas over in America, where we get to arrange and sing, perform the great carols of the Christian faith. Some of these carols are the best lyrics ever written, and what an opportunity then to present the gospel in those songs, using songs which are already so part of our culture that people so easily recognize, and drawing their attention to this beautiful poetry, and using Christmas as a time when people are asking more questions, are more eager to listen, are more maybe willing to come and hear the good news of the gospel, those opportunities and services in church, to use carols in that way, and to remember to continue to use them and pass them on to the next generation.
We had the privilege of working with our friends at OMF a number of years ago to help rewrite the hymn Facing a Task Unfinished, written back in the 1920s at the peak of persecution in China by what was then a communist government. Frank Houghton, the bishop of the Sichuan area of China, wrote this hymn as a call to bring missionaries to China. From that, 400 people gave up their small ambitions in life to bring the gospel to China and be part of what became the greatest single movement of world evangelism in human history.
And a few years ago, we met a lady called Lydia Song from South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And she was part of a ministry of Chinese believers trying to repay the debt, as it were, to go across the world, trying to actually find the same number of people who had come to China with the gospel, sending that same number from China all around the world. And she actually showed me a video on her iPhone of a conference in South Korea of them singing Facing a Task Unfinished. An incredible song written to inspire believers in the West to go to China with the good news of the gospel, now being used by those in China to help bring the gospel to many places in the world who had once known it but have since forgotten it. How critical it is these days to sing the truth, to encourage the growth of deep believers through the songs that we sing. We live in the most wonderful time to be Christians.
We live in the most exciting century in history to be Christians. There are more Christians in the world today. The Bible is in more languages. Communication is global, but we need songs that fill hearts with the truths of Christianity around the world more than we ever have.
This is why we sing.
This is why we sing.